The second studio album from the California-born rapper Keenan Daquan Ray Jackson, aka YG, is undoubtedly one of the most unexpected surprises of the year so far. His presence in the UK has been incredibly minimal, only making headway in the singles charts as a featured artist on the Jeremiah track Don't Tell 'Em 2 years ago, and since then, the guy pretty much remains an unknown entity, and it was only out of sheer curiosity that I checked out his newest release, Still Brazy, an album that follows his critically acclaimed debut, which I thought had some decent moments, but I ultimately felt that the project was overhyped. This time, however, the praise is thoroughly worthwhile, as the guy has clearly come on leaps and bounds to deliver one of this year's best rap albums. Ignoring the 4 skits that are contained on this album, the remaining 13 tracks include your atypical gangster rap themes, but also include some current hot button issues currently rife in America that include the current presidential election and police brutality, as well as dealing with YG's paranoia, especially after being the victim of an unidentified shooting last year, and what results are some highly enjoyable beats, stellar guest appearances from across the board from the likes of Sadboy, Drake, Joe Moses, J305, and hell, even Lil Wayne of all people isn't too bad either, and YG himself for being pretty much on point throughout this project. Representing his hometown of Compton is to be expected on this album, with YG identifying himself as a blood, he often replaces the C with a B, not only on the word Compton but on other words as well, and they are highly noticeable on this project, and a lot of these tracks are very enjoyable, with meaty lyrics and have great hooks too. Don't Come to LA is the first track to do this. Him, Bricc Baby, AD and Sadboy delivering great flows, preempting those who choose to come to LA to be prepared to stay as far away from the gangbanging culture as is humanly possible. And Twist by Fingaz continues this representation, but this time warns those who pretend to be a part of the Bloods in order to gain some rep, and the true Bloods will call you out if they suspect those who aren't legit. YG also bolsters his cred on the track Word is Bond, where despite his prominent success, he will stand by what he says, and if it results in some ugly confrontation, then that's the way it's gonna be. As previously mentioned, we get a preview into YG's paranoia that came as a result of his shooting last year, most prominently on the track Who Shot Me, where YG tries to come up with potential suspects of those he's had beef with in the past and how the incident caused him to seek professional guidance. And the titular track also covers his paranoia about how being shot has forced him to arm himself wherever he goes and has forced him to beef up his security at home, preparing himself just in case the same thing happens again. Whilst there are some politically motivated tracks in the earlier part of the album, for instance I Got a Question, it isn't until we reach the final few tracks where the heat is intensified. FDT, which stands for Fuck Donald Trump, is in essence calling out the possible future president of the US for some of his radical views and some racially motivated and fierce comments he's made on the past concerning people of certain ethnicities. It's a very angry song that's deeply passionate, and with Nipsey Hussle's featured verse, it's very captivating. Then there's the final 2 tracks, Blacks and Browns and Police Get Away with Murder, the first going into police brutality and discrimination faced between those of an ethnic origin and those that enforce the law, primarily concerning Black Americans and Hispanics, also touching upon issues concerning black on black crime and illegal immigration, the effect it has on American society, and ends with this really haunting reenactment of an unarmed black individual being gunned down by a police officer, transitioning into the final song where YG vents his anger at this mistreatment and the lenient sentencing that some police officers have been handed in the past, sparking an uprising where YG notes that some black people are having to resort to drastic and at times unsavoury measures in order to protect themselves. I Got a Question also briefly mentions police harassment, as well as a verse concerning YG's frustration over his woman constantly questioning his loyalty, which, considering some comments made on this album about women wanting to commit to you, YG, can you blame her? But the song's not that bad. Plus Lil Wayne's guest verse is pretty good. Who'da thunk it? The album really does get heavy by the end, and one cannot help but find it all startling and gripping to listen to. All this pent up anger and frustration just comes to the forefront, and it's truly fantastic. Other tracks include Gimme Got Shot, a track lambasting those who latch onto those who become rich through their work and are clamouring for handouts. Why You Always Hating sees YG questioning why ever since he's made progress over the last few years he has so many detractors. The brilliantly titled Bool, Balm and Bollective, where YG shows that he's unfazed in the face of adversity, pressure and brothers of women he's fucked threatening to do him harm. And She Wish She Was, a song about a woman trying to act more like a man in order to gain credibility. YG, along with the guest vocalists, noting that by doing so, she's unwillingly putting herself in a position where she may be taking on certain responsibilities that she may not be able to handle. Many have jumped on board saying that this is detrimental and misogynistic in that regard. Personally, I don't think this is the case. I see the song more as a preemptive warning that whilst the initial image of a gangster lifestyle may seem appealing, once you strip away the exterior, behind the scenes it's a completely different picture. And the instrumentation and production on this album is absolutely stellar. It's rooted rooted heavily in the G-funk genre, blending in electronic drum beats with some organic instrumentation that creates some brilliant instrumentals that when combined with the lyrics, the songs get elevated to a high level. Many of the tracks have this low, warped, dirty synth line that's simple yet provides a great groove that's undeniably addictive. Songs like Twist My Fingers, Gimme Got Shot and I Got a Question are great examples of this. The introduction of organic instruments also gives a lot of these songs plenty of character as well. Although some are brief, they are noticeable and are a pleasing addition to the songs. The opener, Don't Come to LA, has an eerie vibe going on with added synth strings, bass and electric guitars and brief moments of piano as well. Who Shot Me has this Indian vibe going on with the acoustic guitar strings. I love the continuous looped piano on Word Is Bond, with the synth bass which is the same story on Blacks and Browns, and the bass piano notes on She Wish She Was with the synth riff is simply sublime. Regarding the other tracks on the album, they all pretty much fall into the line of synth driven riffs with electronic drum beats. Throw in a few trap hi-hats. It is formulaic, but they provide such a grimy, groovy sound that you forget about that and you lose yourself in the beats completely. If I were to have any issues with this album, they would be minor. As is to be expected, some guest features do outshine others, and some of the rhyming can be a little forced, if the writers can be bothered to rhyme at all, that is. Sometimes you get songs that rhyme words with themselves on more than one occasion, but other than that, what Still Brazy is an absolutely fantastic hip-hop album that not only supersedes all expectations, not only has multiple repeat value, but has great instrumentation, great deliveries from YG across the board, and it stands head and shoulders above almost all hip-hop albums that have been released this year. It's one of this year's biggest surprises and is easily going to be up there amongst the best that this year has to offer. Overall, I score this album an 87 out of 100.